IVM.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Bani. How are you?
I'm good. I'm at work today, so the scenery behind me is very different.
From the bookshelf, which tells us that you're an avid reader.
It's why I do it. So I sit in front of the bookshelf so people know that I'm actually very intelligent. But today I'm sitting in my father's cabin and I get so stressed out to sit here because, first of all, the minute I walk into his cabin, I start sweating. Like there's already some up that I've been called. But he's not at work today, so I'm using it as a recording booth.
Clever. I'm glad you could make it at office hours. I understand today was a
Yes, and I have walked into I walked into office today with my ring light underneath, like tucked in underneath my arm, like, and everyone's like, what's that? What's that? I was like, this was a mistake.
I think you should do a photo shoot with all your colleagues today, just while you have the ring light. Why not? Take a nice picture. No?
This is not that kind of office where we're like posing for pictures.
This is my office wear. Ye dekho, OOTD. I love it. I want to see some regular office clothes.
I'm also not looking my best because I've been just purging for the last 3 days.
I know you've been unwell. How you feeling?
Terrible. But today's slightly better than yesterday. So you can imagine how bad yesterday was. I basically had the stomach flu for the last 3 days and have thrown up everything that I've eaten since 10th standard in like 2 days. So
on the plus side, but minus side, maybe you lose a little weight. Who knows?
I did. I was looking at myself today and I was like, looking real svelte. This bulimia has some justification. No, please, absolutely not.
We are not endorsing eating disorders.
Eat healthy, and it's actually
yes. Thinking about eating clean. Oh my god!
Yeah, it's a great segue. It's a great segue, and I thought of it yesterday because we had this recording plan. But as I was sick, I was like, God, I really need to think about what I eat better and like consider my choices on the weekend and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, the episode, it makes sense. This is the adult decision: is just eating right, eating better.
Taking care of yourself, and how it's so annoying that we can't get away with the same dietary things we could in school.
Honest to God, like I feel like my system used to be able to handle anything, absolutely anything for like 3-4 days.
Hash browns every day hit me.
Yeah, like 3-4 days in a row, like getting drunk, then eating at night, waking up, eating again. And it was like no problem at all. Now it's like one night of burger and chips or something. The next morning I have a spot. Like, why?
It's like your body knows.
No, my body 100% knows when I f***ed up. But anyway, other than that, like work's okay. Not much. We've recorded a couple of episodes recently. So
which is good and exciting. Yeah. I hope you guys are listening. And if you are, write to us. I don't think anyone's written to me in a long time. I just want to put it out there.
Yes. No one has written to me either.
I'm sad.
This is so upsetting because recently I think Agla Station adulthood@gmail.com has found its way into some sort of spam folder of other people. So we're getting a lot of spam and less feedback. And this is my plea to you all.
Yeah, listeners, just correct your behavior and just send us some emails.
And I feel like I'm so desperate to write back to all of you all. And I do. Like
Ayushi actually does also, yeah. On behalf of both of us, she replies.
I write back best Ritasha and Ayushi. But it's me.
It's you. I'm not checking this fan mail, I got plenty of my own.
Exactly. So don't make me feel bad. Please write to our group account and let us know whether you've been enjoying the episode so far. Because we really have. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. The guests these days have been so interesting and
varied, like crazy variations.
Everyone
so from Raj, we've gone to Tanushree, and today we have Siddharth with us.
It's a great intro. So
I agree. Should we just get him on, Ayushi?
Absolutely. Please welcome to the show for the first time, and our good friend from school, Siddharth Sangai. Hi, Sid.
Hi guys. Hi Ayushi. Hi Ritasha. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. So, you want to introduce yourself a bit to our audience?
Yes, please tell us.
Yeah, of course. So I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Fresh India Organics. And we're a company that delivers 100% certified organic fruits and vegetables to your doorstep.
That's beautiful. And I remember when we just come back from college back in the day, like 7-8 years ago, bumping into you at some gathering. And that time you had just started, you were thinking about getting into organic farming and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool. Firstly, nobody from our batch was getting into something like this. Everyone was doing the normal path of like, whatever, the regular, the jobs. But this was so interesting.
No shade on normal jobs.
We love it. We love it. Everything is great. But it's so cool that you are doing something so different and so important, especially in the times and the world we live in.
Thank you.
Just as a quick understanding, like what got you interested in this space? Because knowing you from school, like, I mean, not that people in school show inclination towards specific industries, of course, and not that you were like growing kothmeer in the back of the school or something like that.
Yeah, organic farming karega. We didn't know that. You would never peg somebody as that.
But in general, I wouldn't say Sid was someone like you were so athletic, and you know that's kind of where I thought maybe more. And you did your masters and everything, and you came back. But what got you interested in organic farming and like organic food and like this entire space?
Okay, so basically I started this journey when I did my master's at King's College, and I had to write a thesis. So I chose the role of farming and the role of trust in the distribution of farming in India. And at that point, when I started off, I had zero idea about the concept of organic farming. And one of my friends was just like, dude, check out organic farming. This is going to be the next big thing. And I was like, dude, I've not heard of this. Like, if I've not heard of this concept, I'm sure the masters haven't heard of this concept.
And this wasn't too long ago, so I'm guessing.
Yeah, this was 2014.
Crazy.
And he's like, no, trust me. Just research on it. If it interests you, do your dissertation on that. So I Googled some stuff. I saw organic farming. It says no pesticides, no chemical fertilizers and stuff like that. I was like, okay, this is good. This is interesting. And I go up to my teacher, my invigilators rather, and I was just like, okay, I want to research on organic farming. And she was like, this is great. This is interesting. And she framed my question, and she's like, you know, the biggest problem right now in India is trust. So my friend introduced me to this concept of organic farming, and then I go up to my invigilator, and I was just like, so I want to do this topic, right? And so she gave me the go ahead, and she said, fine, role of trust in the distribution of organic produce in India. At that point, I had zero idea on the significance of what I was researching. I just thought, okay, I want to do this. I said, maybe I can go ahead and make some career out of it in organic farming, but I had zero idea of the significance of my topic, which is the role of trust.
Of trust, right.
So anyhow, I get back to India and I use some of my dad's contacts, some of my cousins, some of my friends. And they put me in touch with some farmers, some wholesalers, retailers, the stakeholders of the industry. And through that, I get an opportunity to travel across India. So I actually started my journey from Kerala, and I move up all the way to Himachal Pradesh.
When you say you got to travel and you got to experience people, like you went from Kerala all the way up north, that basically means you went like farm to farm, or you went like state-wise to understand whether there were people who were doing it organically or whether there were people who were doing it in a commercial aspect.
Yeah, so I basically want to understand what the organic vibe in India was. You know? And it's different in each state. So I started off from Kerala, where your farmers are so, like the land holdings are so small. You're dealing with people who have like half an hectare of land. And then you move up to like a Madhya Pradesh, where they have like 20 acres of land. And then you move up to Punjab, where they have 100 acres of land. And you're just like trying to understand the economics, the mentality, the motivation of how a guy sitting in Punjab is doing it and how a guy sitting in Kerala is doing it. So one thing is to understand the farmer's motivation. The other thing was to obviously understand, as an industry point of view, whether there's scope for growth and economically, whether, you know, what the scene is. So I spoke to a lot of retailers, you speak to wholesalers, you speak to traders, you speak to certifying agencies, you speak to testers, just to understand like where we are, where we're going. And from everyone, the conversation at that point in 2013 was like, dude, India is really far from this. You know? This is not a massy product at all. This is a very, very niche product, because it's probably 3-4 times more expensive than your conventional produce. A lot of people still don't understand the benefits of organic. A lot of people at that point thought organic was just a branding gimmick.
Yeah.
And a way
Which I guess a lot of people are also using it. We'll talk about that also later, how catchy and trendy it's become.
No, but he's right though, in terms of just the nicheness of it, like working, like I work for a surveying and certification company that predominantly works in agri, right? So whenever we in our laboratories and stuff like that, when they have, like organic produce testing, first of all, you have to be like specifically certified for that. So the entire process also of getting something to be proven to be organic is quite complicated. And then the entire thing that you were saying of your dissertation of trust is like, yeah, because even as an educated consumer, knowing that I have friends in the space who work in it, and I know that I could trust, say, your company, there's so much, there's such a big part of you, that even when you go to like a premium store and you pick up something that says organic, there's a part of this looking at it being like, dude, but like, is it, it's a scam. It's a scam. It's a full scam. Like, why would I pay 3x for an avocado?
Yeah.
Which is already so expensive.
Yeah. No, I get that. And as a retailer, as a wholesaler, as someone in this business, it's my job to like sort of bridge that misinformation or try to educate you guys on like, it's worth it because a farmer, for example, who's getting certified is firstly investing 3 years of his life in applying for a certification. So, for example, if I'm a farmer and I have a fallow piece of land and I haven't used chemicals, but I say, okay, I want to go certify myself so that a customer like you can see my certificate and get some form of credibility or have some form of believability in me.
Yeah.
I still have to invest 3 years of my time in just going through the due process of getting a certificate. It's costing me time, it's costing me money, it's costing me a lot of paperwork. So
and also those 3 years, you're not allowed to grow anything in that land and stuff like that, right?
But you can't market it as organic.
Right. Because the land is not organic yet.
Exactly. Right. So you're incurring costs as an organic farmer, but you're selling it as a conventional farmer and in a conventional market for conventional prices. So that's an investment that a farmer is making. As a company, you have to certify yourself. So these guys will come in, they look at my warehouse, they'll take my products for testing. They'll make sure that I am buying from an organic farmer. They look at my due processes, they look at my packaging, they look at my packaging material, they look at my warehouse, they look at my transportation to make sure there's absolutely no infiltration of conventional and organic produce, there's no mixing. So that is its own paperwork and time and resources. And it's
hold up 1 second. So even normal produce can't be transported in like even near organic produce?
No. If you want to get certified, you have to have like different vehicles, different vans. You have to like sanitize it after, say, a conventional produce goes. And the next time I want to send my organic produce, I'll have to make sure that I sanitize and I have to document all of this. That I've used this cleaning agent to clean it up after conventional has gone in. I've left it out for like 5 hours or 6 hours. It's dried out, and then I'm putting conventional in different packaging with different I have to show that my workers have been wearing gloves to touch organic produce and it's a very, very thorough process.
Wow, I did not know that.
So I'm doing this as a say a wholesaler, retailer. A farmer doing that on his level, and it's after all of this that a customer then finally gets a packaged organic produce.
Right.
So I get your point that it may not be fully robust, but it is a starting point. That if something is certified, you can bet that people on the back end have done their investment on time and money.
No, I have again, and I think this is interesting for just you and me in a different way, like as someone who is in the process of certifying things and making sure they're up to code, I have trust when I see the stamp or the seal, because by and large, you have to have trust in that system.
Correct.
I think it's more about the trust of understanding also, like, is it, and this possibly would be my next question to you, kind of, is like, is it worth the hype, or is it living up to the hype, or is the idea around organic food actually correct? Like, do I trust even the people who say like, no, there's a reason why you pick organic, that it's so infinitely better for you. that's also so much part of the trust process. I don't even just mean that do I trust
Absolutely.
that it's organic? Do I trust that do I need to be eating organic? Because for X amount of years,
Correct.
everyone's done just fine
Correct. Absolutely.
eating inorganic food or like,
Correct.
Whatever, chemical
Conventionally
food.
grown
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I used to think that, Ayushi, and during one of my visits when I went to Punjab, I visited this farmer, like very, very remote, like it's probably 100 kilometers away from Amritsar, which is like the biggest city over there. And it was just him on this farm. And as part of my interview process, I'd gone and I was just talking to him, and he's an organic farmer. And I was like, dude, like you don't have a market around you. Like,
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Why are you doing organic? And he's like, I've had 5 generations that have suffered from blood cancer in my family. I've never had alcohol and I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. And I've done testing to find out why we have blood cancer in our family. And it's just because of our soil water content, and the water is contaminated. My food is poisoned. And since that day, he's like, I've had to go organic. Forget about money. I want to survive. I want to live life. I want to like be alive. So there's no other way. Organic is a way of life for me now.
Incredible.
And there's actually a cancer train that goes from Punjab to Udaipur, because the highest incidence, like Punjab, the soil water and the soil content is completely contaminated. Because that's Punjab.
Yeah, and it's depleted and it's so overutilized.
Yeah, and that is where the Punjab and Haryana was sort of the hotbeds for the green revolution, where you've had companies come in and in the 1980s have said, okay, you know what, to boost productivity for your growing population, you need to use chemicals and you need to use pesticides. Because till 1980, we were an organic country.
Correct. I was about to ask that only because our history is that we are an agricultural country even today. And it appears that our Dada, Nana's generation is all like wholesome and hearty and well.
Exactly. They may not know what organic means, but if you tell them, oh, I'm having food without chemical and like organic is food without chemicals and fertilizers, they're like, dude, we've had this all our life. I didn't know you branded it now and told me it's organic.
Correct.
That's 100%. That's what my Nana Nani also, when I tell them it's organic, they're like, you have found fancy ways of marketing things.
Correct.
Your generation doesn't understand, etc., etc. But
coming back to, sorry.
No, continue.
Coming back to your point about like we've lived 60 years and nothing's happened. That is our parents' generation, which unfortunately have missed out, because in the 1980s when they were growing up, organic was whatever, and you've had this industrial green revolution that's come in and said pesticides are good, it boosts productivity, it helps the farmers, it puts more nutrients, it looks bigger, it tastes fresh, it tastes better, it looks fresher, whatever. So our parents, unfortunately, are the generation that have these questions, and my parents had the same question to me.
Yeah.
That, like we've lived 60 years, nothing's happened, touch wood. Even if I switch to organic now, how's it going to benefit me? If I've already damaged my body for 60 years, switching to organic, how's it going to benefit me now?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's taken a pandemic, and it's taken taken this scene for a lot of people now to become conscious of like, okay, you know what? Anything can happen anytime. It's better. Like, it's never too late to start. It's never too late to like adopt better practices. So they understand now, they're more conscious of what they're consuming.
Would you say that your larger clientele is all young people?
No, I would say a larger clientele is still between 45 to 50. I think that's because they're also the ones who are making purchase decisions for fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So even if, like, I would say most of our group or our age group between 28 to 32, 35, we're still living with our parents. We may understand the benefits of organic, but like to convince the person who's actually making the purchase decision is one headache. And secondly, to break habits is very difficult. So if I convince you today that, organic is great, you go home and you tell whoever, your parents, that, okay, let's buy organic. I'm sold on it, that we're going to use it. They'll try it once. They may try it twice. But then eventually, if they're not like 100% sold on it, they're going to go back into routine and buy from whoever else they're buying.
Also, there's this kind of mindset where like certain vegetables, sure, we don't mind buying organic, like salad leaves and things like that. But doodhi, whatever, tindola and all these normal sabzis, they will only buy from the sabzi wala for some reason.
And so that is the reason why I even chose that, if I'm going to do organic, I need to do it in fresh fruits and vegetables. In 2014, when we started off, a lot of people were doing your dals, your rice, your wheat, your jaggery, sugar, stuff that nothing happens for 2 years.
Right.
Low risk, high reward kind of game. We identify the gap that, if a customer needs, if a person needs to adopt an organic lifestyle, everything on his plate needs to be organic and it needs to be accessible. So there's no point having organic rice and organic dal, but having conventional bhindi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, but that's even the main problem, right? Like when you're approaching someone to be like, you need to make the switch to organic, it seems daunting because to make it feasible, to actually live up to the idea of what organic is and to why I should make the switch, ideally I should switch all parts of my life to organic.
Like means from the face cream you put to the toothpaste you use to the food you're putting in your body to the toilet paper you're wiping your ass with, everything, and the detergent that's washing your clothes. Then though.
And we have had this conversation. In fact, we've had this conversation with people from EcoFam who've told us, like, to move towards organic hygiene, and menstrual hygiene also, like to reusable environment. Sustainable. Like these are sustainable practices. So when you think of that, like as someone who lives a very fast economy life, and I don't mean that like, oh, I'm so rich and spending all the time. I'm just saying that I'm very part of a general capitalist structure of that is sold to on advertising and wants convenience, wants speed, wants like cost benefit, like of whether it's cheap, whether it's not. I think one of the biggest challenges for you and people in the organic space in general is kind of like, not only is it to convince a consumer that this is beneficial for me, but it's also to convince a consumer that you can replace these products in my life. Like there are alternatives for everything, that it will not cause me an inconvenience.
Correct.
And that it will at some point become cost effective. Because let's not lie, cost is a massive part of a consumer's decision-making process. Because today you can tell me so many things about the health and all, but if my salary is X, I can't afford X plus 5. That's just not.
That's not happening.
And our mentality is also like, do the bhajiwalas coming to my doorstep? He's giving me the thing at this price. Now you want me to go online, like to do this other thing and pay 3 times the price? Yeah, okay, his bhindi tastes better. Definitely. And I'm not knocking the process at all. I believe in the aim of what you're doing. It's more like, this is a challenge for sure. This is a massive challenge, I feel, for anyone in your space.
Absolutely. But I feel interestingly, you never mentioned benefit of, you said like, I have to go online and pay X plus 5, but you never factored in the health benefits that you would be getting from organic.
Why don't we take a break? You come back and tell us the benefits, okay?
Yeah.
I need to know because I am planning to switch all aspects of life. Okay. We'll see you on the other side, listeners. You'll hear us on the other side with Ayushi.
I hate everyone. I hate everyone.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archit stir up a hot pot of stories exploring the age-old breakfast of Old Delhi Nihari. This is a must-check out from the #1 food podcast in India. We'd like to welcome Audiogan to the network. It's an old show about design. We want to kick off this season with Jay Datta, design-headed Make My Trip and Go Ivy Bo. He's also the founder of Design Up. Positively Unlimited gets a makeover. Check out the revamped show Say No to Drama with Chetna and learn how to avoid drama in your life. Home is where the heart is. Marathi Kirkitun helps us understand more about homes. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth asks the pertinent question, is jealousy good for you? And on the Musafir Stories, get introduced to the headhunters of Nagaland. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast you love. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, CEAT, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Welcome back.
Personal jinx. Now you can't speak for the rest of the episode, which is my dream. I'm just kidding. No, please. But before we went, and my internet also went, I apologize profusely. Sid was saying that, interestingly enough, when I was mentioning my challenges, I didn't say something specific. You had a point there before it got cut off. So please pick it up from there because I didn't hear you.
I'm saying you factored in convenience and you factored in price, but you didn't factor in your health benefits by switching to organic.
Yes, you caught me.
And I would go as far as to say it even tastes much better. But that is the proof in the pudding. So hopefully one day when you try, you know that. But
organic pudding. Sorry, I had to make a stupid joke. Continue.
But obviously, yes, like I understand every organic retailer or wholesaler in this industry realizes that we do have a sizable challenge ahead of us.
Right.
But I do say it is a chicken and egg story. So if there is increased demand which matches up to supply, your prices will have to stabilize, and they are stabilizing. Trust me, from when we started off in 2015, 2016, I think in Bombay, the price, I would say the price difference would have been anywhere between 2 to 2.5x. And now I'm looking at somewhere but like a lot of our products are, if not cheaper, on the same price as conventional. And if they are a little expensive, they will also correct themselves in the long run, as long as like supply meets demand.
Yeah.
You have to realize right now there are very few farmers that are doing organic.
Yeah. So the more you see the switch to that, and is that something that you see happening organically, the switch, or do you see that's more like you guys as from the more business side of it, the retail side of it, turning around and pushing the farmer to be like, or approaching more farmers to be like, hey, look, there is a demand, consider it. Like, how does this balance work really?
I think for organically, it works both ways because for farmer, see, he's the one eventually that is making that investment in terms of his time and his cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So if he's not bought into the concept of organic for the long run, for the long haul, it's very difficult for me to just tell him, the market's booming today. Why don't you start doing organic? It's a 3-year process. Do your certification, do all of that. For the rest of it, like whatever, be organic. And the market may not be there tomorrow. So it can't be so fickle that, just because today that's there, start organic.
Absolutely.
The farmer himself has to buy in and be like, because it just takes like one mistake or one unknowing action from a farmer's end where he may unknowingly spray something or water may trickle in from another farmer's land or whatever.
And it ruins all his hard
work. Exactly.
It's just so
that's
delicate.
So unfortunate, actually.
So it is a lot of dedication, it's a lot of hard work. And that is why it's also more expensive because think about it, if it's a conventional farm, I can put 3 guys with a sack of spray and they've just got a pipe or shower and the thing, and they just go around spraying the entire field. For the same amount of land on an organic thing, I need 7 guys who go there personally. They have to look at each plant. There's no chemicals, there's no fertilizers. They have to put cow dung manually. They have to put cow urine manually. They have to check each weed manually. Everything is very manual. It's very labor intensive. So it's a lot of commitment from the farmers end, and definitely I think they need to buy in first and foremost. And then obviously a person like me can help them find their market and give them that encouragement that, we are in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
You make your investment from your end and we're there to back you up.
I have a question about the regular farmers.
Yeah.
Like, say, I don't know much, but what I've heard is that the government also has certified X amount or XYZ. These are the khad you should use for your kheti. So apparently the government provides some kind of manure or some kind of fertilizer or some kind of pesticide. Do you guys have any insight into that? If it's good, bad?
No, fertilizers, you mean conventional, like chemical fertilizers?
The government is providing. So we don't know what they are giving. No, but they give farmers some kind of unko sarkar ki taraf se milta hai. Like I've heard this from people who have farms in say Uttar Pradesh. And they get some kind of urea or something.
Yeah. What? So that's just conventional. That's normal conventional farming. So yeah, obviously urea is really bad. That's a complete no-no. That's because it just raises the amount of nitrogen into the soil, which then we're eating and then we're getting the nitrogen. So that's basically your standard chemical fertilizers and pesticides.
Yeah.
Which
there needs to be a big shift then, that means at a very high level for our country to move towards a better farming habit.
Absolutely, but our country is doing they do a little subsidies for smaller farmers. For bigger farmers as well, they do have subsidies where if you say you want to buy organic seeds or you want to buy organic manure and you want to buy organic fertilizers, they will subsidize it on your farmland. So they do.
Okay.
The government is encouraging that.
And they have to because the scale of farmers and agriculture in general is so varied in terms of, like he said, even from you're talking about farm size, which is a massive problem in India where, people always say what is the challenge is because there's no standardization in the plot size. between something that looks like someone's backyard counts as a farm and something that looks like a mountainside and a hillside also counts as their farm. So like you can't really have no support coming from a centralized government for these kind of things. It doesn't make sense. People will lose their jobs, livelihood, and business. And at the end of the day, there's a billion mouths to feed.
Correct.
So doing that sustainably has to have a lot of input from both ends, like from all ends in terms of consumer, producer, and a government regulator, if you put it into that state.
Absolutely.
So it's good that they're helping it, but they need to either help it more or, I don't know, I guess this is massive. This is a huge mentality and I think structural change that has to happen as well.
I don't even think I understand the enormity of farming.
Exactly.
Sid, how have you changed as a person in the last 6 years doing this work, meeting the farmers, being part of this agricultural industry?
I've definitely become a lot more patient. So when we just started off, you won't believe I want to get down apples from Kannur, which is the highest apple orchard in the country. It's about like 100 kilometers off the Chinese border. And it takes me like 2 days just to reach there. So I go from Bombay to Chandigarh, fly down, and then from Chandigarh I drive down to Shimla, I spend the night there. From Shimla I have to drive up another 8 hours to this place called Rampur, meet the farmer for all of 5 minutes.
Wow.
Just so that when I go back to Bombay, he answers my calls. Because like the pace of lifestyle and the motivation of a farmer in
Pahadi standard time, guys.
Exactly. is completely different to a guy in Nasik, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
But like apples only come from there. So there's no other option but to do all of this. So I've had to make these trips multiple times over years and months, just so that the guy now knows that, okay, if he calls me, he's serious, I can answer his call and I can send him what he wants.
Yeah.
His money is not going anywhere. And I actually mean business. I'm not just like taking another quote from him. I'm not wasting his time.
Yeah.
So these are teething problems. And I've had to do that, whether it's apples from there or it's avocados from Ooty. I've had to like go around each farm, vet them personally, make sure that they're organic, sit with them, have lunch, understand their motivations for going organic.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was like a really time-consuming process. It was fun, obviously, like traveling and seeing different parts of the country, which is
it just like opens your mind up. Yeah,
we are big fans of like traveling in India and speaking to people in the country. Like between my work, yours, there's so much similarity in terms of you get to go and see how things work, and you're like, I had no idea. I had no idea that this is how it comes from the farm to my plate. Absolutely. Like when people talk about farm to plate now, I look at them like, dude, f*** off. You have no idea what farm to plate means.
Yeah.
For you, it's sitting at a gourmet restaurant and eating stuff that you think is organic, and that's great. But sometimes if you start thinking about like you said, you sit down and understand the mentality of the farmer. Is he in this for the right reasons, for the long haul, is this something that you can trust? Again, it just comes down to trust. And
absolutely.
That's so large. And today when you sit down at a restaurant and you eat the food in front of you, you have no idea how many times that has changed hands to get there. And I think like young adults don't get that because, again, why would we? I don't even blame anyone. I feel like, why would we? But people who work in these industries, and we've been able to open our eyes to this. It's so, I think, humbling, first of all, is massive. It's like a huge humbling process.
To actually be like this to the farmer, you know, because we are like always like, "Arey, mujhe acha nahi laga, kuch aur banao," and all these tantrums that come with food. But the amount of time, effort, care that is going into growing these things, it's blowing my mind also.
So just to touch on exactly this, just to touch on to what you guys elaborated and what you guys have said, I have now made a policy that to never waste food, and I make sure people around me never waste food for 100%. This reason. Because I've been there and I've seen the amount of time and energy and especially with even organic, conventional, credit where credit's due, the amount of like effort that's required for a farmer to grow your produce. And
it's backbreaking work, man.
Yeah, and it's so casual for us to say, okay, you know what, I'm not in the mood, whatever. Food's made and you're like, okay, this is not good, I don't feel like eating, I'm not in the mood, I'll eat later on, that thing goes to waste. And that really breaks my heart, and that is something that I take to heart right now. So I make sure that people around me, and myself included, do not waste food.
This is a positive change in you from doing this work.
This
How
is
lovely.
it's so good that like these are those kind of things you're like, no, these are the responsible choices I need to be making to be a functional, holistic, positive, good adult. Like good. I'm using the word
Quote
good,
unquote good. But
adult.
also it's like these are the values you're taught in childhood also ki you shouldn't
Exactly.
waste food.
Yes.
Then we grow up and there's this culture of excess and suddenly we're all like, no, it's fine. If you have money, fucking burn it. But that doesn't matter because there's so many other things to think about, not just the fact that you can afford to waste food. It's not that.
Yeah. You shouldn't waste.
So yeah, I mean, congrats to
Absolutely.
us all for not wasting food. But guys, this is the bare minimum we can do.
I was about to say, I was like, I'm just saying the bare minimum of even sometimes sitting at a table when we go out, because we socialize, I should say, we do. And you're going and people all, and there's so much of excess food that's coming to the table, you're kind of like, hey, let's think about this a little bit more.
I think there's a level of mindfulness and care that is in organic farming,
Yeah,
which needs to permeate into our regular lives in general.
absolutely. And another thing, obviously, that we've learned, because it's been such a niche market and it's been a very slow, I would say it's been a very rewarding journey, but it's been a very slow journey to get to where we are.
Of
And
course.
so obviously patience is our biggest thing. When we started off, I started like, my family has zero background in organic farm, like forget organic, in agriculture.
Correct.
To start off and to see, like we started from the basement. We had 0 sales a day. We started off with maybe 2-day deliveries, only Tuesdays and Fridays.
Yeah,
We only
I
used to do
remember.
fruits. We used to take orders 2 days in advance. So if you wanted to order on Tuesday, you have to give us an order on Sunday. And obviously, a lot of customers found that really irritating and really annoying and whatever. But those are challenges we need to overcome. And from seeing 2-day delivery, like seeing no orders, we've seen orders where, like we've seen days where we have 0 orders and we're just sitting. And me and my first colleague are just like looking at each other and being like, okay, one day, just be patient, it's going to come. And to reach now where Touchwood, we're in a good state, we're in a good place, has been a very rewarding journey. But obviously that perseverance and that patience and that dedication, that's something that I've learned. I'm not saying I have it, but I've learned that is important for you to succeed in whatever you do in life.
I couldn't have said it better. And in addition to all these things, I also want to ask you, how much of a role did faith play in sticking to the journey and like not quitting?
Well, I don't know how to describe it. It was a massive part. That, I mean, we really needed to have a lot of faith, because like I said, there were days where we had weeks, in fact. Like our first month was like, we had weeks where we didn't have sales. And you needed to have that perseverance that, it will pick up. This has to be the future. Now, whether that future is in 1 day or in 10 years, that could be destiny, that's fate, that depends on like market, that depends on a lot of other external factors. But what can I do to make sure that I'm ready, whether it's 1 day from now or 10 years from now? And so obviously you have to have a little faith, you have to like have a little trust, you have to have a little perseverance, dedication. And but entrepreneurship is that, I think whatever field you do, it is a pretty lonely road. You don't have that security where you say, I'll only work Monday to Friday, 10 to 6, then 6 o'clock my laptop is shut, my phone is off, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
This is your time, your baby. So it's like everything you've got.
And it's also difficult when on a Monday at 2 p.m. when you don't have work and you're just like, okay, what do I do right now? When everyone around you is like, all your friends are like, they're extremely packed, they're busy. And you're like, are you wasting your life? Are you in the right place? You're 25. Should you be doing something else? But yeah, that is where I think entrepreneurship for me is more skill-based game. It's a more personality-based game, rather. Sorry. It's a more personality-based game rather than like an intellectual-based game.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell us more. Personality-based.
Like, I think you need to, like, some people, and there's no right or wrong, but some people do, like, either they can't work for someone because they have an ego, either they can't, or they value security, or they value mental peace, or they value whatever your motivations are for doing what you do. You have to have that internal motivation, right? From my point of view, I just couldn't do a job. I didn't want to be the guy who's sitting at the desk and like working 9 to 5 while while my boss is chilling on the beach. I wanted to be the guy chilling on the beach on a holiday.
I'm with you. Same.
I mean, that was my motivation. So I think like it depends person to person, what you want to do, what you need to do. So for me, this was my way. I was like, how do I get there? And so entrepreneurship, I think you need to have these attributes. Because you need to have a lot of patience and you need to have a lot of perseverance and you need to have that conviction.
What pep talk did you give yourself on the really down days? I'm sure listeners are interested in hearing.
This like, dude, it's like struggle right now. So that when you're 45 or 50 or 55, whatever, and when you say, you don't want to work anymore and you want to go to Goa or the Bahamas or like London and chill, you can do that. You don't have to ask for permission from your boss to do that.
Love it.
So you might as well struggle for now, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 30 years, so that when you want to chill, you can do what you want.
Is Aishi with us or she isn't?
Yes.
No, you are.
I am.
Very quietly you are hanging around, so I got confused.
Because I was just listening to Sid talk about, like, I enjoy talking to people in my age group who are hustling and trying to do something and trying to break into a new segment, because it's not only is it inspiring, and I usually get emotional about these things, but it's like, it really gives me a lot of hope for a new generation and a new way of life, a new way of working. We are not bound, like he said, by a regimented system, even though I am, like, I take ownership of that. Like, I work a very, not 9 to 5 at all, but I work in a more corporate or like officey environment as such. But I understand that. I understand the idea of not wanting to be answerable to the man upstairs, so trying to do it your own way and struggling and the struggle that comes with that, because obviously the entire thing of not having a boss means that you're kind of a little bit in the dark of like, have I made the right call?
Absolutely.
I don't have anyone to ask on this, because if I say yes and it fucks up, then that's it. I took the call.
Yeah.
That is why it's a lonely road.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a very, like, it's a personality. I think, I don't know, this is from my experience. I think what you choose career-wise is a very personality-driven.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not doing anything novel, right? Like, organic farming has been around since 100 years and it's going to be around in 100 years. I didn't innovate and I didn't create organic farming.
Yeah.
But I chose entrepreneurship for these very reasons. Or I chose to do my own thing for these reasons.
It's so nice that you have this clarity, though, which I think a lot of young people anyway, we lack because of so many factors, So it's nice to speak to you. Even I had this clarity at a very young age. No, this is what I want to do. And that helps so much, because then you can devote that time and energy to making this dream come true, as opposed to, not that that's a right or wrong path also. I mean, we all take various paths to arrive at our destiny. That's fine. But
No, I think it's really cool. And I also think it's always cool when people work in, specifically when we have such a fast-paced world, to work in something that requires you to slow down, take full responsibility of every step of the process. Like you said, from the fact that your truck can't be the same for one carrot and another carrot is like, it's just amazing. Like, you don't think of the burden that goes into that. But listen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I have one last question.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Just to talk about the pandemic and the business. How's that been the last year and a half?
So that's been great. Unfortunately,
I love it. We needed a laughter break. I love it.
So that was an extremely selfish answer, but yeah, it has been good. And I'll tell you why. Because it has convinced a lot of people to buy online. It's forced a lot of people to buy online. I think 90% of India before, I'm not sure about the facts, I'm making this up, but 90% of India before would be buying offline, would be going and buying at a physical shop. Like my mother would never trust a Big Basket or never trust any online company. It could be 5 times cheaper online than where
we would never trust, because we all want to go and touch and feel and hit it and buy it.
Yes. I know, bargaining, bro. It's like bargaining. Like she'll haggle a little bit. Even if she gets that 3 rupees off on the lemon, for her, she's won. She's won the day.
Literally, mine also. No matter how rich the auntie is, she will haggle. I love it.
We love it. It's a sport for them.
It's a sport, you're right.
And like it's like, okay, I want to go out and buy onions, but then tomorrow, if I'm there and I see Maggi sauce, I can buy that also. I see avocado, I'll buy that also. So it's that whole mentality that I am going. So yeah, but obviously this came, and then people were forced to buy online, and then they started being like, okay, if companies such as ours are replacing or refunding, or they're delivering what they promise, they have a good customer service. Okay, we could mess up in terms of you could get like a bad apple, or you could get a bad papaya, which is natural. It can happen even from wherever you buy. But as long as they know that I have an outlet for me to rectify the situation. So either they'll refund my money or they'll replace it. They've got a decent customer service. I can put a face to this company. I can put a name to the guy from where I'm buying it. So that trust factor is coming now into buying online.
That's beautiful.
So a lot of people have now been like, this is one less thing that we need to go to a crowded place for. We can buy at least our fruits and vegetables online. Obviously, with the pandemic, they've become more conscious about what they're eating. So organic as a segment, as an industry, has picked up. And then obviously the buying patterns have changed. So yeah, it's been good, touch wood, and I just hope we don't need another pandemic for people to realize
the value of this. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I would actually have gone, like I would have added to that only to ask you that not only the online, I'm sure there's just more people taking more responsibility and care of their health, because I know people who have switched to organic just to be like, dude, now at this point, let's do whatever you can to not succumb to diseases that are airborne or waterborne, or like come through your food, or come through touch, come through like a soiled or like spoiled food, or like stuff that's been touched by 10,000 hands and then come to you. Like that whole concept of health has also entered a space where it didn't exist. We're not so health conscious as a country. Now segments are opening up.
I'm fit to India fit, guys.
And a lot of people, because the demand has gone up, a lot of suppliers have also come into the market.
Right.
And to touch on our earlier point, when supply and demand, they equate, when the equilibrium is reached, you will find prices are going to be more affordable.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a sustainable avenue for your lifestyle.
But how many years approximately do you think before organic produce is accessible to every Indian?
I would say in the next 1.5, 2 years. It's just an estimate, but see.
That's beautiful. That's very, very, very hopeful, because I was looking at 10, 15 years to lagega for the common man to be able to afford it.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's going to be a massy product, because you look at even America, you look at Germany, or you look at all these industrialized countries, even organic over there is not a mass
product. Right.
But the proportion is lower of like organic consumers to this thing than it is here, for example. So for us to reach a critical, level where, okay, we know like 50, 60 or 40, whatever, 40 to 60%, that range of our population to eat organic, I would say that may be like a while away, but from what we are right now, we're probably in single digits right now for organic consumption in India. So at least for us to hit double digits, even like a 15, 20%, that could be 2.5 years away.
Amazing.
But that's good. That's a sizable chunk, and that's like that's a big, like now you look like a fighting piece of the pie.
Exactly.
Like of the Venn diagram of consumers, at least you look like a contender. And I don't mean you, but I just mean like the market of organic looks like a active contender.
Absolutely. And the challenge is all organic players in the industry are aware of the challenges. We need to do more to educate. We need to do more to like encourage like farmers to do a good job. We need to make sure that like we can represent and we can bridge the gap of trust issues.
Yeah.
So whether that is investing more in our certification processes, and whether it's testing, we also we send our produce to labs to get independently tested. This is over and above our certification cost, but we feel like whatever little we can do to like make sure that like we're credible in front of our customers, we're doing. And I don't mean this as a company. I wouldn't badmouth any organic player in this thing. I would say, what, like this guy is giving you fake products or that guy is giving you fake products. Because as an industry, when more people come in, when more retailers, wholesalers come in, there are more options for consumers.
Yeah.
And you will, as a consumer, see that, okay, you know what, I have more options. I can switch whatever I'm getting conventionally, I can get organic. I can get at a better price. And then once you switch, that's the end goal, right?
Absolutely.
The future is bright and the future is organic.
And the future is more on us than it is with our parents. I feel like
for sure.
It's the onus and the burden of this is definitely on us as opposed to putting it on like the generation above us. But
I know you have to go.
No, but I know that I just like that you wrapped it up with trust again. Like you started it, like your journey started out with you just figuring out about trust. And now you're working on, replicating that down the line. So that's really cool. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys.
Any parting words of wisdom for our young adults?
And remember, you're speaking to our peers, but also people who are slightly younger who listen to the show to just be like, what do we do? How do we go about adulthood? So adulthood top tips or tip.
No, I would I'm not an adult in any sense of form. I'm still very blind. But I would say, just hang in there. It's cliche, but cliches are true for a reason. Trust me, you need to have that little dedication. You need to have a little faith. And you need to have a little perseverance. But once you have those things, whatever you're doing, eventually you will see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, this was amazing. I have to turn on my video just for that. And hopefully this doesn't drop me off the call. But thanks.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Listeners can find you at where on Instagram? Do let them know.
Yes.
Fresh India Organics.
Fresh India Organics.
Yeah. What is the handle?
Of course, Fresh India
Fresh India Organics, yeah.
See, beautiful. So they will write to you if they have questions, concerns, comments.
Absolutely.
Love it.
You can find them at Fresh India Organics on Instagram, on their website, and all their stuff is like they have a wonderful product list, and that's not the reason we got them on, but definitely give them a look. And of course, you can find Tash on at RYTASH on Instagram, and you can find me at AyushiA9 on Instagram and at Just Ayushi on Twitter. And once again, please write to us at agrasstationadulthood@gmail.com.
Have a great weekend, guys. And everything.
Bye. Bye.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार